Sox win the ball game in extra innings. Final score 6-4 in Chicago. Not ideal for the Red Sox. They wind up with a split here heading home.
So I've said this before. You split a 4-game series, that's sort of acceptable. To win 3 out of 4 in any given series. Hard to win 2 out of 3 against good teams. But against even bad teams, hard to win 2 out of 4, hard to split. It's an acceptable outcome unless you are playing the Chicago White Sox, in which case I would say it is entirely unacceptable. But that's what happened over the weekend at Fenway Park. Red Sox now 3-3 entering this week, entering a couple of tough series coming up. The Philadelphia Phillies for one. The Red Sox will face them first at Fenway Park. And Jimmy Stewart, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't the Yankees next on the schedule? I should know that.
They are. They're coming this weekend to sweep you.
Okay, so you got really a couple of big series here coming up. At home, Phillies and Yankees back-to-back, the 2 best teams in baseball after you split 4 games in Chicago against the White Sox.
It's a 6-game losing streak.
Now, I will say that generally speaking, baseball has a way of surprising you sometimes. So you say, well, coming out of Chicago, they split with the White Sox. Now they're coming home and the Phillies and Yankees are coming in here. It would be just like the Red Sox to go 4-2. Except that this year, they've played like garbage against good teams. They've generally played better against the bad teams. And
Mazz, they split against the White Sox.
Jimmy,
the White Sox, who had lost 15 games in a row, and it was a gritty win on Sunday. Like, come on.
So I'm just telling you, the game can be unpredictable, and the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean anything, really, even if the Red Sox were to somehow win these 2 series, because we all know that when the games matter, everything's a little different. And so a couple of things I want to hit on tonight, and I say this again, with the Red Sox, I don't know how we can talk about anything other than the big picture, because frankly, just many people are not watching the games, and I don't blame you. I've said this a million times. I don't blame you, particularly with the Celtics in the NBA Finals. Tomorrow's Tom Brady night on top of it. But there was an item in the Boston Globe today that triggered some discussion about Wyc Grousbeck and what the Celtics mean to him and how they're going to approach ownership of that team that I do think applies to the Red Sox. And there are a couple angles on it. So I want to get to that in a moment. It really is contrasting the ownership styles of the Celtics and of the Red Sox, if we can contrast them, and I think we can. But first, can I just say this? If we're going to talk about contrasting organizations, let's add the Philadelphia Phillies to the discussion with the Red Sox. Jimmy, the GM of the Phillies is who?
David Dombrowski, also known as Sugar Daddy Dave.
Okay, Dave Dombrowski, the architect of the last Red Sox World Championship team, effectively bringing his Phillies in here tonight. They have the best winning percentage in baseball. Philadelphia has a .652 winning percentage, best in the game. 1 percentage point, 1, ahead of the Yankees, who will be here later in the week. Philadelphia's 45-20. The Red Sox are 33-33. In the standings, were they to be in the same division or league, 12.5 games separate the Phillies and the Red Sox. 12.5. Now, I liked the Red Sox better when they acted more like the Yankees and less like the Tampa Bay Rays. But the situation is what it is. So, and I said this earlier on Felger and Mazz, I just think it bears repeating, because this whole idea of we're not going to spend, we're going to run it a certain way, and when I say not spend, we're going to cut back on spending and run it a certain way until the team gets to a point where it can win a championship. I would submit that you don't really save a whole hell of a lot doing that as a baseball team, and you do damage to your brand. So John Henry and company bought the Red Sox for $770 million back in the winter of 2001-2002. The team officially sold in the spring of 2002 for $770 million. Jimmy, I don't have the latest Forbes rankings in front of me, but the value of the franchise is what, $5 billion now? Something like that. So the value of the team has increased 4 times over.
$4.5 billion as of March 2024. The Yankees, by the way, because I know you'll ask that next, $7.55 billion.
Okay, and so again, and the Yankees keep spending money every year, and the franchise value keeps going up and up and up. You see my point? So the Yankees have gained in value every year. There is sort of an additional benefit, and I understand there are operating costs in every business. But I think that when you do damage to your brand, the value of the franchise doesn't go up as quickly, and I think the Red Sox have done damage to their brand. Okay, that is a long way of saying that. Now, how does this relate to the Celtics and Wyc Grousbeck? It's not really a basketball story, it's an ownership story. Wyc Grousbeck told the Globe, quote, "We are fans who bought the team. We're doing this for love," Grousbeck said. "We're doing this for Celtic pride, and we're going to put everything we can into the team to win a banner, to win a championship." End quote. Everything we can to win a championship. Now, contrast this with something John Henry told the Financial Times. And I say something. Henry has said similar things of the like in the past. But these comments, and I read in Sean McAdams' post on Mass Live the other day that Henry actually made these comments months ago, but they just recently appeared in print. Henry said, first of all, he was asked if the group FSG, the Fenway Sports Group, was going to sell the Red Sox. Henry said, "We generally don't sell assets." Okay, so on the one hand, you have the owner of a team in town saying, "We're fans who bought the team. We're doing this for love. We're doing this for Celtic pride. We're going to put everything we can into winning a banner." And then you have another saying, "We generally don't sell assets." Henry also said, because fans expect championships almost annually, they easily become frustrated and are not going to buy into what the odds actually are, 1-in-20 or 1-in-30. So again, he reduces it to a math problem. Now, I would tell you that in Major League Baseball, half the teams aren't even trying. So 1-in-20 or 1-in-30 isn't really 1-in-20 or 1-in-30. It's probably more like 1-in-10 or 1-in-15. The shame comes in the fact that the Red Sox aren't one of the 15. And the idea that fans want their team to go all out all the time, there is some truth to that, but no realistic fan, none, not one, expects a championship every year. George Steinbrenner, as maniacal as he was, did not expect a championship every year. What he expected was excellence. He expected a competitive team that could threaten for a championship, and if not every year, pretty damn close. A team that would make the playoffs, that had a brand, that had a standard. It feels like the Red Sox have lost that. I hope they regain it. But the question really is, as you examine and weigh both of those sets of comments, what type of owner do you want? Now, and I bring this up because Felger has said on Felger and Mazz, and he said it this afternoon, that when it comes time, it's easy for Wyc Grousbeck to say this now, that he's doing it for love. If the Celtics win the championship this year, and then they give Jason Tatum his max contract, are they going to do what the Golden State Warriors have done and pay taxes out the nose to keep this group together for X number of years? Or is he going to start trading off pieces? So let's see it happen first before we give the Celtics credit. Now, that said, I do believe, generally speaking, that the Celtics have their hearts in the right place and their intention is to spend forward and win championships with this group. Plural, championships. But in the same breath, I will tell you I'll believe it when I see it. I need to see that commitment. I need to see the money go out the door. And it's also different to spend when you have a championship caliber team versus trying to get a team on the field that is competitive and can maintain interest. Those are two different things. So I ask you again, What type of owner do you want? Do you want a fan as an owner? And I'm going to bring up something that a friend of mine texted me today, and he's someone I would deem a hardcore Boston sports fan. Hardcore. And he said when he saw the Wick Grousbeck story today in the Boston Globe, his comment was, this is the difference between local ownership and ownership that's not local. Wick Grousbeck, local guy. Treats the Celtics like a fan would treat the Celtics. Invests in the Celtics accordingly. At least that's the belief or the perception. John Henry, Tom Werner, Larry Lucchino originally, outsiders who bought the Red Sox, treat them like a business, now part of a portfolio, but with deep pockets. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have the local guy? And how much of a factor also is the local ownership? How much of a difference does it really make? That's a big one for me too, the question. Do you want local owners? Are you one of these people who wants local owners? Do you think it makes a difference? 617-779-0985. Phillies are in town, apparently with a blizzard of fans that have descended upon the city of Boston. Shocker. Fenway's going to be overrun by Phillies fans this time. So hold your seats in the bars, because the Philly fans are in town. They'll be causing a stir. Phillies in town. Celtics playing for a championship. The owner is being celebrated for going all in. The Red Sox are 33-33 and now rank in the middle of the pack in payroll in Major League Baseball. What kind of ownership do you want? And is a local owner a good thing or a bad thing? We'll get to all that tonight on the Baseball Hour.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony. baseball never. The Baseball Hour with Tony Mazz on the Sports Hub.
If we were to ask John why the parameters were lower than in years past, what would he say?
Look, we have parameters each and every year for the Red Sox in terms of where we are comfortable, in terms of Major League payroll, in terms of total baseball operations spending. That has not changed since 2002. There's been a willingness to change those parameters mid-season, mid-year, based upon how the team is doing. But there's no change to our overall operating philosophy, other than we are in a build mode. You can see, we were talking about some of the young players. We're building around this core group of young players, and we'd like to extend some of those young players.
That is Sam Kennedy from back in the spring. Purely as a aside, that is Sam Kennedy, who was sitting in the second row of the Celtics game last night. Jimmy, did you catch him on TV?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I did.
I would have booed him and heckled him the whole night had I known.
Sam was under the basket if you're watching on your television, he was under the basket on the right-hand side. So a couple of rows back, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know, somewhere in that area, good seats. And I'm not mocking him for it. Good for Sam for going. I think it's good that the teams in town show up at each other's games. That's all good stuff. It's that kind of market. It's, we care about our teams here. We care about the sports. We care about the winning.
I'm glad he cares about the Celtics because he obviously doesn't care about the Red Sox.
So it's what makes it good, really. The Crafts go to the games, too. I mean, we all know that. Like, they raise a banner and one team shows up or someone wins a championship. They throw out the first pitch or they show up in the other stadium. Like, we all know how it works. That's all good. So, but Sam made that comment in the spring. And the thing I want to emphasize to me, and I'm trying to be fair about this, but this whole idea of going all in to win the championship. The Celtics had the team. Okay, they have Tatum and Brown now in their peak years. If you're not going to spend now, you never will. When you have those guys in their peak years, you go for it. So the Red Sox would argue that they don't have the team right now, so that's why they're not spending. That's effectively what Sam Kennedy said in that comment. We're in a building mode, which I get. I get the logic. Now, my personal feeling is the Red Sox need to do better in building mode. They can't finish last in the division, and they can't just accept 500. They need to be a little more aggressive to make sure that building mode is something different. And just as a quick aside, when Danny Ainge rebuilt the Celtics and he traded off Garnett, Pierce, and Allen, well, Allen left by a free agency, but when he effectively put together a half-decent team, it was a bridge team, Isaiah Thomas, but he did that while Brooklyn was tanking for him because he had Brooklyn's picks. Okay, so that was a clever way to do it. It's how most NBA teams would do it. But the idea is you still have to put a representative product out on the field or on the court. Those Celtics, as much as they weren't going to win a championship, were entertaining. The Red Sox have ceased to be entertaining. So I come back to it. What kind of ownership do you want? And I'll just add, if and when the Red Sox have that young nucleus and they're ready to compete, are you convinced that they're going to spend again? Because I'm not. I hope I'm wrong. But I am not. Matt in Rhode Island. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, just for starters, Sam Kennedy should be selling vacuum cleaners door to door. He'd be really good at that. Now, when they fired Dombrowski and went to Chaim Bloom, I don't know where this huge analytics shift went, but that to me is the demise of the franchise, as well as not spending any money in these places and just spending the wrong money. So they got it all wrong right now, but you have to give them the 4 championships that they did win. You have to give them credit for that.
Okay, so Matt, again, I would say the analytics thing are sort of a different conversation. It's part of it, because I will tell you this, the Celtics use a crap ton of analytics too. How many times have you heard Joe Mazzulla talking about the three-pointers and the analytics and, what the most efficient way to score is? So they're playing a certain way too. Don't kid yourself on that. And I know that they're different sports, so it's not always apples to apples. But what do you want your owners to be? And do you insist on having the local guy? Ed in Kingston. Ed, what do you got?
Hey, what's up, Tony? I'll keep it clean. if it's between the local guy and the rich guy, I'll take the local guy every time, even if he's a loser.
Why?
I hate John Henry.
Why?
I just don't. You know why? I don't like his personality. I hate everything about him. It's all about money for him. It's his portfolio. It's. We're not the be all. We should be the focus. We should be the Boston Red Sox. He doesn't give it. He doesn't give a damn about us.
Ed, I'm going to put you on hold for 1 second. Don't hang up. Let me ask you this question: do you think he cared about you at the beginning?
You know what? Maybe he did. Maybe I think he did. I don't know. It feels like they cared at the beginning, but now it just. We're not Liverpool. We're not the Penguins. We're not Roush Fenway Racing. It makes me sad. I don't know what else to say.
Okay, so you want to feel important. You want to feel like you're the only child. You want to get all the attention? Is that what you want? See, here's what I would tell you, and I'm just giving you my 2 cents. The local owner thing, be careful what you wish for. Let's see how it goes down in Foxborough now that Brady's gone and how much the local thing really matters. The Kraft's philosophies down there aren't that different from the Red Sox. They're not. The difference is that they had Brady consistently for 20 years, and they were able to contend and win with Brady for 20 years. Soon as Brady went out the door, so did the winning. So the Red Sox, I would tell you, I'll take the pockets and the money every time over the local guy. Every single time. The money's what matters. So, and you say, well, and if your answer is, I want to feel important, no, you don't. You know how you feel important? By winning. That's how. If the Red Sox were winning, you wouldn't care. So remember, Wick Grousbeck has been the local guy owning the Celtics for however many years it's been. Jimmy, what year can we look that up quickly?
It was 2002, wasn't it?
Okay, was it the same year as the Red Sox? So the Red Sox bought in 2002. I just don't remember when Wick and, Steve Pagliuca and that group, Wick and his partners, took ownership of the team. Was it right around the same time?
2002.
Okay, so there you go. So in that case, they're apples to apples. So think of it in these terms. Wick Grousbeck has one title in 20 years as Celtics owner. John Henry has 4. Why do you hate Henry? And the caller says, I don't like him. I don't believe in him. He's a businessman. Why, you think Wick's inviting you over for Christmas dinner? Or Thanksgiving? You're going to spend holidays with the Grousbecks? That's not happening either.
I will say this, though. Wick has bought drinks at bars for Celtics fans.
Okay.
He's done stuff like that, and John Henry, I don't think, has.
Well, so, Jimmy, I don't know that he hasn't. But at the end of the day, would that really matter, too, if they were losing? Listen, what you want as a fan is pretty simple. You want a good competitive team that can win championships. Can win. That's what you want. Now, it's easy to say today you'll take the local guy over the guy with the money because the local guy's in the finals and the guy with the money's team stinks. So I think it's about the winning. Don't overplay the local thing. I'm just giving you my 2 cents. The local thing only gets you so far. And I can give you some examples of it, too. Adam in Pawtucket. Adam, go ahead.
What's going on, Mazz? Yeah, that's what I was going to build off of, actually. You mentioned earlier in the Felger and Mazz show about the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, how he was a local guy, and I didn't know that, but how obviously devastating it was until they got him out of there. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see what your take was on it, on the local or the just the guy with a bunch of money.
Okay, so Adam, here's how I would put it. You know what I want? I want a guy who wants to win. I don't want a businessman who's interested just in the profit margin. I don't want a local guy just because he's local. I want a guy who wants to win. So Mark Cuban's the owner of the Mavericks. Most people would say he's a good owner. He's a competitive owner. He wants to win. He's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He grew up in Pittsburgh. Peter Angelos, as you mentioned, who owned the Baltimore Orioles for a long time and was, in my estimation, one of the worst owners in professional sports history. Dreadful owner. They just sold the team not too long ago. He ran the Orioles into the ground. He was from Baltimore. They celebrated him when he got the team. In the same breath, George Steinbrenner, who was a maniac, celebrated as the crazy but competitive owner of the New York Yankees. He's from Ohio. Doesn't really have New York roots. So this whole idea, it's not about where you're from. It's about the philosophy and the mentality. Okay, it's not about the the part of it that where you grew up. It's got nothing to do with that. Justin in Shrewsbury on the pitching matchups. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Mazz. Thanks for taking my call. So with some of the two best teams in the league coming into Fenway, we're kind of facing a gauntlet of pitchers starting tonight with Zach Wheeler. I know he's like a candidate for Cy Young in the NL, and maybe the only saving grace that Red Sox will have against the Phillies is that they're a little jet lagged from their series in London this weekend. And then for the Yankees games, they face Luis Gil, who's a Cy Young candidate, and Carlos Rodon as well. So just kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, and kind of, if the offense can even get anything going against, these stud pitchers coming in.
So, Justin, this is going to be the test for the Red Sox pitching staff. So the lineups are going to favor the two teams who are in town this week. The Phillies and the Yankees both have better lineups than the Red Sox, which we all know. We all know that. But I also believe that even when you have a good lineup, if you pitch exceptionally well, you're going to hold them down. Because good pitching inevitably beats good hitting. Just the odds of the game are in your favor, which is fine. So I have always felt you don't beat good pitching with a good lineup. The Red Sox tried to do that for years and years and years, and it failed. You beat good pitching with a complete team, but you beat them with better pitching. So you got to be able to outduel them in these games. Now, I think it's easier to outduel the Red Sox when you have the Yankees pitching because your lineup's going to make it harder on them. You get the idea. Not everything is in a vacuum. But if the games are low scoring, you got a shot. And you manufacture some runs. If the games aren't low scoring, you're going to get killed. I think. That's what the odds would say. But again, I'm interested as much in the philosophical part of what's going on with the Red Sox right now, because I think there is a connection to that story that was in the Globe today about Wick Grousbeck. Wick Grousbeck builds himself or portrays himself as a fan whose only interest is in the winning, which I don't believe for a second, by the way. I believe, and let me rephrase, I think that Wick wants to win, and he understands how important it is to the fans. And as Felger put it today, his heart's in the right place. I believe that. I do. But he also has business partners that he has an obligation to. So I don't know whether they all want to take losses to win a championship. Maybe they do. Let's see how far they're willing to take it. At some point, there's a breaking point for everybody. And I think you as a fan, all you really want at the end of the day is to win. We'll continue with your phone calls. I see you all lined up, which is greatly appreciated. Kevin Majori's got your headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Sports Hub.
Can we surmise that there is additional room from where you are now compared to the parameters that you've set?
I do not want to talk about specifics related to payroll or parameters because it does nothing to help us competitively. And look, I think the focus on spending is fair and reasonable given where we finished the last couple of years. We understand there's frustration. The best way to turn that frustration around is to go out and win baseball games and have the focus be on the team and our players versus where we're spending. There's nothing that I can say or do at this point in the offseason that's going to make anybody feel great about what's happened the last 2 years. So we've turned the page internally and we're moving on to 2024.
Again, that's Sam Kennedy from the spring. And he's right about the last thing. There's nothing we can do anymore. The bottom line is we need to win games. That part is true. They just don't win. And again, there have been some injuries. There have been some bad luck. There always is. Just like there's luck when there's winning, there's luck when you lose too. Bad luck. So they've had some bad luck too. I also think the Red Sox have kind of half-assed it. So, the luxury tax adds a dimension. You don't want to necessarily pay the tax when you're losing. Like, I get that, but have they maxed out? And some of the decisions they've made, particularly under Chaim Bloom, like, I feel like Bloom was cautious to a fault. Breslow, I feel, is a little bit better, but I still feel like the Red Sox really, they've been spinning their wheels for 5 years, and they've lost fans as a result of it. I'll give you a good stat on the Phillies and their fan base here in a minute, but a lot of you are waiting patiently, so we'll take as many phone calls as we can here. Martin in Texas. Martin, what do you got?
Hey, Tony, I just think that one of the biggest downfalls, and this isn't the only reason for the way that a lot of the owners are acting, but adding a wild card spot to the playoffs is one of the worst things they could have done because now they think they can just eke in going, 82 and 80 and not spending any money when still the best teams like Philadelphia and the Rangers just won the World Series with a $500 million middle infield. And David Dombrowski is spending money out the you-know-what, and he's in the World Series or the Championship Series every year since he's taken over in Philadelphia. And they just can't come to terms with it.
So, look, the extra wild card spot opens up a whole different can of worms because, again, it doesn't take much to win that spot, although I think, one of those years, the last couple of years, the number was closer to 90 than people want to admit. So I understand that, but I agree that what it does is allow you to kind of back off on expenses during the regular season and then pick up someone at the deadline and sneak in and maybe win a World Series. It is further enabled teams that want to skimp on payroll. Okay, it is further enabled them. So the extra wild card has allowed the Red Sox to, for lack of a better description, skimp. Well, it doesn't take that much. All we got to do is win 84 games, which is why Tom Werner is feeding you the bull crap about our defense could have got us 9 more wins. We get to 88. We're in the playoffs. Anything can happen. And yet, it's funny. As much as everyone says anything can happen, the team that wins the World Series more often than not is a team that has spent to win it. So whether it's the Atlanta Braves and they had an aggressive deadline 1 year, or really the Texas Rangers, as Martin just said, spent $500 million on their infield. $500 million. They sucked for a year, but ultimately it paid off and they won a world title. And you tell me, so we say the Rangers are stupid for doing it? Are they stupid when they win? And that's another thing I should have checked. But I'd love to see if their franchise value went up significantly from last year to this year, because I'm willing to bet it did. And that their owners were able to leverage that gain for some other investment they wanted to make. I'd be willing to bet it. Dante in Linfield. Dante, what do you got?
Hey, Tony, to kind of harken back to your original question, I might be alone in this, but I want Henry as my owner. Or someone like Henry, because the only thing I care about in my owner is the pockets, right? But what we can't do is we can't present this false choice that while we appreciate the history, right, when you stop using those pockets, it is certainly fair to criticize somebody for that kind of change of heart.
Agreed.
Right? So I mean, the way they think about it currently, in my eyes, right, because this sabermetric stuff has elevated to the owner's box, right? They see a division as overly competitive. You see a team like the Orioles who set up for a few years, the Yankees set up for a few years. It is an opportune time, as they see it, to set up for the future, maybe when those guys go back down the curve, right? And just to pull that thread that you also just had, it's the extra wild card that is driving all of this. They all see it as an opportunity to sneak in, and that anything can happen, right? That expands the breadth of the playoffs. That's what's pushing down spending.
So I agree. I don't like that. The more I think about it, that extra wild card spot I don't like. Because I do. I think it opens a door for teams to say, oh, you know what? Now all we have to do is win 84 games. Then we pick up at the guy at the deadline who will cost us, let's say, $3 million for the rest of the season when we would have had to pay in the off-season market 12 for him. And again, the math, my point is the player's more expensive in the winter than he is in the summer. So, yes, absolutely. And you say the analytics elevate to the owner's box, I got news for you, and which you already know. In this organization and many others, the analytics emanate from the owner's box. They don't elevate to the owner's box, they emanate. John Henry believes in analytics, and can you blame him? It made him billions. It made him billions in the commodities markets. So I get the logic, and we've talked about this. The analytics work. They work to a degree. But how do you predict human performance in a high-pressure situation with stakes on the line and the other guy has more talent? How do you predict that? It's a hard one to get past. John in Georgetown. John, what do you got?
Yeah, Tony, rich owner or local owner, what matters is an involved owner. I want the John Henry who we had years ago. I want the one that was charged into your radio station to argue with you about the Red Sox. The problem is none of us, the analytics can't account for the fan. The fan doesn't want to sit 20 years and watch the bond mature. We want to watch the craps game. We want someone to throw the dice and see every once in a while something exciting happen. The problem with this mutual fund approach to baseball, which has ruined the sport, is that you can put a 4A team on the field and make money on it. The problem with the 4A team is I don't love anybody, I don't hate anybody, which makes for an unexciting product at the end of the day. You go back to those Yankee Red Sox years, Red Sox fans knew Hideki Matsui and Jorge Posada, and we hated them, respected the heck out of them, but we hated them. I can't name 5 Red Sox and 5 Yankees combined today.
So this is the thing, is that the fan interest and the owner interest can often run counter to one another. If the owner, and again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, if the owner is not necessarily making winning a priority, which is not the priority here right now, hasn't been for a while. So it was in 2018. And by the way, this is something that was also spelled out in the story in the Financial Times. The Red Sox have won 4 World Series under John Henry. So at one time, the winning absolutely mattered because it had been so long without one that I think John Henry and his partners recognized that the way to the heart of the fan base was to win. They also had Larry Lucchino at that time, who was, for lack of a better term, and I say this with affection, he was an animal. Larry was an animal. He was relentless to the point where it drove people crazy that he worked with, including Theo Epstein. So did Theo Epstein and Larry Lucchino clash? Yes. Did ultimately Larry almost chase Theo out of town? Yes, he took it too far. But the two of them together worked because Theo felt as strongly about his model as Larry felt about his on the business side. And the push-pull ended up in the middle, and they spent money, and they developed, and they won. And they won big. Big. They needed both forces. So now the pushback on Red Sox ownership doesn't exist anymore. Once they chased Dave Dombrowski out of town, and they did, they ended up with Chaim Bloom and now Craig Breslow, who want to do it the same way the owners do. So you don't get the pushback. You don't get the push-pull. And Sam Kennedy's not beating the drum the way that Larry Lucchino did. Sam is more in line with ownership. Theo's now part of ownership, part of the Fenway Sports Group. So you just don't have that same go, go, go element in the ownership that you used to have. That's a problem. They need someone in there that's going to push back. Paul and Quincy, go ahead, Paul.
Hey, how are you, Tony? Yeah, I want an owner with money who's willing to spend it, but spend it intelligently. Don't sign players who may have been injured. You know what I mean? I want an owner who wants to win, but who has the money. I don't care where he's from. You know what I mean? All I care about is, are you willing to spend the money to have this team win, but also make it a long-term team as well? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so look, Paul, I'm going to let you go, and thank you for the call. It's a tough pull. It's a tricky thing. I got to balance the long-term and the short? Yes, hard to do. In sports, it's hard to do. And Theo Epstein called one of the years a bridge year, which you have to do from time to time. You're going to have those stretches where you're not ready to win a championship, but you're still going to put a product on the field, and you've somehow got to make people think that it's a legit team. But if you call it a bridge team, everyone will shove it down your throat, and then it becomes a huge negative, and now there's a what's the word I'm looking for? A backlash. So there is a balance there. But I will say, all in all, from 2003, really even 2002, to 2011, the Red Sox generally negotiated that balance pretty well. Generally. They averaged about 95 wins a year in there. They won a couple of World Series. They went to 4 league championships, I think it was, in that period of time. And generally, it worked. They were the best team in baseball for that 10-year period. They only won 2 World Series, not that other teams were winning a whole bunch. But if they weren't the best, they were the best in the American League or one of the 2 or 3 best. They were right there. They had a present, they had a future. Now, it feels like they have neither. The future is certainly more promising than it was a year ago. I'll still believe it when I see it. They have some good players down at AA. I'm fearful that they're not as good as everyone thinks. So they have less of a future now than I think that people realize. They have a better one than they did a year ago. Or less of a future than people want. We'll wrap it up with your calls when we come back.
anonymous, but players get to answer different things. And one that jumped out to me was questioning players if everything was equal, money, taxes, everything that goes into it, what team would you most want to sign with? And I think some fans will be surprised by this, because I think the belief is that the Red Sox have become a tough place to play sometime because of Boston, the home record, whatever. Red Sox still rank very highly, second only to the Atlanta Braves in a place players want to play. What does that say to you?
Yeah, I think that's striking. And I think ultimately, given that it is the players who decide where they want to play, especially as they reach free agency, having the decision maker desire coming here is great to see. It's reassuring. It's comforting. It's also not overly surprising. I can speak to what it's like to be a player here and why this would be such a desirable destination. And you look at the stadium, the city, the passion that the fans have. I think all of those things point toward making this such an attractive place for so many people. And it's something that we need.
Very, very quickly, Mike and Dylan. Mike, go ahead first. I'm sorry, Mike, go.
I'm an out-of-market fan. I haven't watched a game all year. The first time I was 7. All I do is listen to this program a couple times a week, which is less than I used to. And I'm concerned that they're about to become as relevant as an MLS franchise. So I'm concerned they're going to pull the plug on you guys.
I got you. I'm going to let you go, Mike. I said real quick, but I get the point. Dylan, go ahead.
Look, I just think that Alex Cora is not getting it done anymore. I think that Boston should just change the whole culture and sign Big Papi and Pedroia to the coaching staff.
Okay, so look, the least of the problem here is Alex Cora. And with regard to the first caller's point, which I don't even remember now. What the hell did he say, Jimmy? Do you remember? Oh, they're going to get worse? They might. They might. I'd be worried about that, too.
He's worried about losing the baseball hour.
Okay. I don't think that's his real issue. Look, they've got to give you a product. Okay, they've got to give you a product if they want you to watch. But to just quickly, the comment that Craig Breslow made, and maybe I'll do more on this tomorrow. Actually, I won't, because there's no baseball hour tomorrow. Maybe on Thursday, I'll do it with Carabas. I told you this week there'll be only 2 baseball hours because of the Celtics.
At Gillette Stadium, we do everything but Brady talk.
Okay, so you're not going to get a baseball hour tomorrow night. The next one will be on Thursday. But I will say this just quickly. The Craig Breslow's comment, there was a story in The Athletic, a poll among players where Boston was deemed the second most desirable place to play in the major leagues. Second most desirable behind only Atlanta. Now, good sign, right? Sure, yeah, because we all think, who wants to play here anymore? And I would say, exactly. If it's so desirable, why can't the Red Sox get anybody to come?
Money.
Is it that? And Tom Caron, in the question that he asked to Craig Breslow, said, money, taxes, things like that, all things being equal. One of the other things that was in the story that was not in Tom's question, and I'm picking on him a little bit, is the competitiveness, how good the team is. Also a factor. I would love to play in Boston, but the team sucks. I would love to play in Boston, but they don't want to kick out the dough for me because their team's not good and they don't think they can win. If all these guys want to come here, and they do, why aren't they coming? Why aren't they coming? So are they lying? See, that's a no-win proposition for the Red Sox when it goes that way. Players want to come and you can't get them. What does that say about you? Majorities, get your headlines. We'll see you tomorrow.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, the road to Banner 18. This is the flagship station of the Boston Celtics.
The Boston Celtics swarm the floor.
WBCF